When Mark encountered a strange, radiant creature deep within the cave, he stared in confusion and asked, "What are you?" But as the creature slowly approached him, curiosity overtook his fear, and he reached out to touch it. The moment his hand brushed against its glow, everything shifted, and suddenly, he was thrown into the past, the very day his powers first awakened. For a moment he was shocked, his mind reeling from the vision. Yet he quickly forced himself to act as if nothing had happened, and continued with his day, heading to school as if fate had not just unraveled before his eyes. Days passed, and soon Mark found himself standing alongside Robot and the other heroes, joining their mission to fight crime. Together they battled criminals, clashed with the Mauler twins, and faced villains that threatened the peace, until one day, while fighting against the Flaxens, Omni-Man appeared, his piercing gaze landing on Mark, realizing in an instant that his son had awakened his powers, a secret Mark had carefully hidden from both his parents. That night, Nolan confronted him, his tone sharp, his expression unreadable.
"What is going on, son?"
Mark hesitated, his heart pounding, then asked the question burning inside him.
Do you love me?
Nolan blinked in disbelief.
"What? Why would you ask me that question?"
Mark's voice rose, desperate for the truth. He exclaimed that he needed to hear the answer, to know if his father truly loved him and his mother. Nolan paused, his face softening after a long silence.
"I truly love your mother and you, deeply. You're both very important to me, Mark."
Mark stepped closer, his voice trembling yet firm, begging his father not to conquer the world. At those words, Nolan clenched his fist, his eyes darkening. Mark spoke faster, explaining everything, telling him of the battle they were destined to fight, how Mark had once refused to follow him, nearly losing his life. But Nolan had stopped himself, and together they later stood against the Viltrumites, where Nolan saw the truth for what it was.
I know this sounds insane, but I don't want to fight you again. I really don't want to.
Nolan's fist cut off his plea, striking with brutal force.
"You can't defy the Viltrum Empire."
Mark looked at his father with a mixture of fear and anger. Nolan smirked coldly.
"Your hypothetical situation was very creative, son, and I honestly don't know how you figured everything out."
That wasn't hypothetical, I know the future.
Nolan's eyes flared with rage, accusing him of lies, yet Mark stood firm, insisting on the truth. But Nolan refused to listen, answering instead with another devastating blow.
"I am no traitor."
The real fight began, Nolan seizing Mark and dragging him into the sky, flying him toward the city with lethal intent. But Mark, knowing the path ahead, twisted their flight, forcing his father into another direction, hoping to slow him down, pausing desperately to reason with him. But Nolan's response was another merciless strike. Mark realized words would not work, so he broke away, fleeing through the air, his father chasing with the fury of a predator desperate to kill his prey. The chase was nightmare fuel for Mark, his father's shadow never far, though Mark narrowly dodged, sending Nolan crashing into the ground. But in seconds Nolan was upon him again. They clashed on a mountain's peak, rocks shattering around them.
Dad, please stop fighting and listen to me.
"I won't stop until I've beaten some sense into you."
Before Mark could reply, the Guardians of the Globe arrived, their eyes widening at the sight before them, demanding to know what was happening. And in that instant, Mark's plan was revealed. He had not been running, he had been stalling, leading his father here to expose him.
He's been lying to you this whole time.
Nolan roared in fury, throwing Mark aside, seizing Immortal by the throat. War Woman leapt from behind, but Nolan was unstoppable. His fists tore through Immortal, bursting his heart, and as War Woman prepared for his strike, Nolan lifted his hand for the killing blow, when Mark rushed in.
Stop fighting this.
The Guardians swarmed, striking with everything they had.
You don't want to do this, you just feel like you have no choice.
Nolan's response was another brutal punch to his son. Red Rush blurred into action, only for War Woman to shout a warning. Nolan's killing intent was locked on Mark, but before he could finish, Darkwing intervened, saving him at the last second. While Mark and Darkwing caught their breath, Nolan hurled the other Guardians like ragdolls, his hand tightening around War Woman's neck. Suddenly, Green Ghost phased through Nolan's body, weakening his internals just long enough. War Woman struck hard, and Nolan collapsed unconscious. The team wasted no time. Red Rush bound Nolan in chains, the Guardians exhaling with relief, Mark staring at his father. "I will never get used to this." War Woman rushed to Immortal's side as he slowly rose. Darkwing warned them that the chains would not hold forever. Green Ghost asked what they should do when he woke, and that's when Cecil arrived, his voice sharp and commanding, declaring that he would take it from here. Soon after, Nolan was imprisoned under Cecil's watch. Mark stood before him, guilt written across his face. He tried to apologize, but Nolan cut him off, asking first if he had hurt him.
Yeah, but I will be okay. It was worse the first time.
Nolan's face fell, his voice heavy with regret, admitting Mark had been right. He confessed that anger blinded him when he realized Mark knew everything. He admitted that if Mark hadn't been there, he might have slaughtered the Guardians, his own friends.
I would have killed so many, and I would have lived with that guilt for the rest of my life. This planet has changed me, Mark, and there is no going back from that sun. Without you, I don't know what it would have taken, what I would have done to make me realize that. Thank you.
For the first time, Omni-Man's voice carried no command, no dominance, only gratitude. Nolan thanked his son for showing him reality, and Mark, with a heavy heart, looked back at his father, uncertain of what came next.
Please subscribe and feel free to comment below if you have any questions about the comics.